I don't want to talk for too long about this, but I do want to mention that Deebo Samuel has requested another trade from the 49ers. This isn't the first time that he's requested a trade, as he requested one before he got his extension, just a couple years ago. And, I'm going to pull up the tweet right now so that way we can see, where the report is coming from. And, this is from Adam Schefter. And Adam Schefter says, the 49ers have granted Deebo Samuel and his agent Torrey Dandy permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver, Samuel told ESPN. This comes after Samuel asked San Francisco to trade him during the players' exit meetings after the season. It was a hard conversation to have with Kyle Shanahan because of the relationship that we have, Samuel said today. But I have to do what's best. I'm more than thankful for the 49ers giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, but now I think it's best we find another team. I agree with Deebo here. I think it's time for both parties to kind of split ways. I don't know if maybe the ending meeting kind of gave Deebo maybe the impression that the 49ers were going to have him take a pay cut, but I definitely think that this was not his strongest season. I think if we really recap the years that he's had with the 49ers, there has been one season where I think he's really lived up to his contract, and that was before he ever got paid. It was him in his contract year in 2021 where he was fantastic. I didn't feel like they should have extended him at the time. I felt like he was a player that they should have traded rather than paid, but they paid him. I would have invested that money in the offensive line, but I'm not running the show. I'm just being a fan. But, as a fan, this is just normal. You're going to have players come and go. You can't keep everybody. And I hope the 49ers kind of go in the direction of ripping the Band-Aid off here, because it doesn't seem like Deebo wants to be here. And I think there's a disconnect between fans and Deebo Samuel right now too, because I don't know, Deebo is consistently not in the best shape. And, one of the reasons why I didn't think that they should have extended him a couple of years ago was because he is a very physical football player. And so with physical football players, they do not last as long. If that is their strength, after a certain point, it kind of becomes like the running back position, to where your body just cannot take so much beating and bruises for such a long sustained period of time. But in 2019, Deebo came in as a rookie. We went to the Super Bowl, and Deebo, I would give him he was solid that year. I'd give him a B, right? Then in 2020, the 49ers had a Super Bowl hangover, and he came to training camp out of shape, and he was injured. I want to say he was dealing with hamstring injuries at the time, or some sort of lower extremity injury, and missed a couple games, but just wasn't it wasn't a good year for him. And then that's when in 2021, I thought he should have won Offensive Player of the Year, honestly. And who did it go to, Mike? Was it Cooper Kupp? Yeah, so it was between him and Cooper Kupp. And right now, I mean, the Rams are kind of in a similar situation with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is more the route runner, and they're going to part ways with Cooper Kupp. They told him. This is a little different because Deebo said it's time to move on, rather than the 49ers doing so.
Right, Cooper Kupp thought he was going to finish his career with the Rams, whereas Deebo's like, "Get me the fuck out of here." I did think about that because I saw a graphic where it was like Deebo, Myles Garrett, and Cooper Kupp. Wow, what an offseason we have ahead of us. Take away Myles Garrett. That's crazy how the two guys that were at the top in 2021, just 4 years later, are getting kicked off their teams.
4 years is a long time in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
When the average NFL career is 3 years.
Yep. It's just crazy to think man, those guys were at the top of their game 4 years ago, and now it's yep, find a new team.
Yeah. And then so 2022, I want to say Deebo might have been out of shape again. And 2023 was the year where Deebo had another solid year, but didn't finish off the Super Bowl solid. They went to him a bunch of times in the Super Bowl. He had like 11 targets and maybe hauled in like 3 of them.
Mm.
You know, uh, what I have to say is I enjoyed having Deebo on the team more than I didn't enjoy him. Like he's not a bad player. He's just not a great route runner, and I think that's what you should try and pay wide receivers to be. The ones that can get open and that you don't have to scheme open. I'm not even saying that Deebo can't like be successful somewhere else. I think that he would be good if he would the perfect landing spot for Deebo is for him to get traded to the Ravens.
I'll tell you right now. Yes, I agree with that, by the way. The perfect guy to get on this roster in place of Deebo. You guys trade Deebo. Let's say you get a 4th-round pick for him. Like, it's going to feel underwhelming, but hey, you get something for him. I don't know if he has to change up his deal or what. I don't know what has to happen because I know he has a big cap hit. But man, it makes too much sense to me with you guys. I still think you're in that Super Bowl window. You still have Purdy, right? You still have Trent Williams. As long as you still have those guys in the draft, hopefully you draft well. Free agency might go good for you, hopefully. I think you have like $50 million in cap space. Like, you can get some moves done. Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
When the Jets cut Devontae Adams because his contract, I don't think it's tradable. So I think that they have to release Devontae Adams. He becomes a free agent. He wants to play on the West Coast. He wants to be close to home. There's nothing closer to home for him than San Francisco. And I think with the Super Bowl window, I think that makes too much sense for both parties.
Hey, I would welcome Devontae. I just don't know if like he and Purdy are perfect partners. Like if Devontae wants to, go to a landing spot that's going to like perfectly utilize his talents, it's with the Chargers or the Rams.
I think the Rams. Yeah, I think the Rams make the most sense
If they
in
keep
that
Stafford,
sense.
though.
Right. They would have to get that to work, and he does have Puka opposite him, so there'd be a lot of targets going somebody else's way, but I obviously Herbert is the better quarterback, but I think as far as the offense goes, I think the Niners would be more fun for Devontae.
Yeah. Fonzie says that he would say Godwin. He would take Godwin over Adams. I think on the 49ers, that's a good point. I think that they would be able to use Chris Godwin, a lot better to suit Brock Purdy than Devontae Adams. But I kind of wonder if when Brandon Ayuk comes back from his knee injury, if maybe they might move him to the slot. Like I know he typically plays X receiver, but I mean, what is Brandon Ayuk going to be able to do when he comes back? Like he's still going to be getting paid for the next couple years. Are they? I mean, if he's not the same, they can't just shelf him, right? Like, I don't know. I would love to, like, ideally, I would love to have Brandon Ayuk on the outside, Ricky Pearsall in the slot, and Jennings be the number 2 receiver. I think Jennings has earned that. Whereas in the past, maybe Jennings would operate in the slot and, just kind of be like the number 3 receiver, backseat to Deebo and Ayuk.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do like Chris Godwin, though. That's an interesting name, Fonzie. Yeah, man. I think Devontae, if it has to be one of the West Coast teams, I think the Chargers are a very wide receiver needy team. And
yeah,
like I think LA makes a little bit more sense for him. But hey, if he wants to be as close to home as possible, we'll welcome you with open arms. You can be in our intro still. You never left.
Yeah. Just change the color to red instead of black. I will say, because Devontae is at the stage that he's at in his career, which is he's still great. I think he's still top 10 in the league, but I just don't think I guess point being, I think T. Higgins is going to get a bigger contract than him, like
Mm,
annually, um, which tells me the Niners won't go for T. Higgins. Maybe they could, but I think that's something that, like, oh man, actually, the Commanders would be awesome for T. Higgins, and they have the cap space. But if the Chargers have the cap space, T. Higgins makes sense because you can lock that up long term with Justin Herbert and Lad McConkey. And then if they draft a running back, which this year is the year to draft a running back, like their offense is pretty well set. Um, whereas the Niners, it's like it's this window, which is why I would lean Godwin and Devontae over T. Higgins for your team.
mhm. Fonzie says Adams would be our number 3 to number 4. Yes and no. So he would definitely be the most talented receiver, but I could see where he gets the 3rd to 4th most targets. Behind George Kittle, behind, you know, uh, just kind of the culmination of the other receivers, and ideally Christian McCaffrey.
Right. I think it would probably still be the same as what it's been, which is any given week, anybody can get the most targets, but more than likely, when fully healthy, it was Ayuk. And I think this upcoming season, Ayuk's not going to be that guy. So if you have a Devonte Adams, I think out of 16 games, Devonte gets the most targets 8 times. Maybe 6 of those other times is Kittle, and the other couple of times is McCaffrey. Like that makes sense to me. And then maybe towards the end of the year, Ayuk starts to pick it up, and maybe we get the breakout, the sophomore breakout from Pearsall. But I think if you have a guy like Devontae on the team, he and Kittle are going to be the top target getters, and we still don't know. We still don't know how McCaffrey is going to be next year.
Yeah, that's a big question mark that we still have to find out.
Yeah,
But it's going to be a long off season. Hopefully, McCaffrey is able to put up at least one more healthy season.
yeah,
Fonzie says just like Hopkins today. Yeah, it was kind of sad to see DeAndre Hopkins today.
yeah.
You
He did
know,
have one nice big. I think it was a 2 point conversion. He had that nice snag out of the air. I can see what Fonzie's saying here. Of like, if it's at the end of Devontae's career, he could be that number 3 to 4 option. I see that. Uh, and I completely forgot about Greg Jennings, Juwan Jennings when
yeah,
considering guys for targets. I just still think Devontae's a top 10 receiver in this league, and I think whatever team gets him, if they don't have a Garrett Wilson, if they don't have a Jamar Chase, he should be getting the most targets. Other than like at this point, obviously a Brock Bowers. Um, and like I said, I think half the season you can make the case for Kittle getting the most targets, but it probably just depends on the matchup. Like if the matchup allows for like, yeah, these guys are really struggling at corner. Oh, Devontae's having a game. You know.
yeah. I would just like to see Pearsall step up a little bit more, and I would like to see the 49ers, maybe target Brandon Ayuk a little bit more, assuming that he'll be able to get like if we can get 90% of what Ayuk was, I see that as a win. But
Yeah.
probably realistically, he might be like 80% of what he was because
Yeah.
it was a
And
nasty knee injury.
I guess I'll say to Fonzie here, like I'm sure at the right price you would like to have Devontae. And hey, whether he's the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 receiver on this team, it's nice to have a great receiver like he's saying right here, right? Maybe he's not quite there anymore. To me, I think he's not that far off of what he was a year or two ago. I think really the guy that was far off from what he used to be is Aaron Rodgers. Um, and just that Jets offense wasn't that good. I think regardless, in this window that you guys are in, to have a guy at a Hall of Fame level, maybe 80% of that, whatever, but the Hall of Fame hands and route running that is Devonte Adams, that is extremely valuable to this Super
Yeah.
Bowl window that you're in my opinion. It's worth it.
Yeah, he can add like let's just assume that Devontae maybe is kind of washed or like, getting a little bit old. Like, we got Emmanuel Sanders towards the end of his career, right? In
Mm-hmm.
2019, and that was like the move that really helped the 49ers passing game. you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah. I mean, hey, if Garoppolo was like 2 or 3 yards short, you guys might have beat the Chiefs in 2019.
yep.
Not to bring that up, but yeah.
And then Fonzie asks, how much cap space do the Ravens have? LOL. Well, according to Over the Cap, they have 5,956 or 5.956 million. So, I mean, they can always restructure contracts and make things work. Like Lamar's going to be there for a while. I don't know how much time Derrick Henry has left, but there's Roquan Smith that they can restructure, and is Zay Flowers going to get an extension? Is he hitting a contract year? So they're going to have to budget for Zay Flowers too. So I'm just saying, like, from a football perspective, if you have a run, like a running game or like an RPO game that stems from Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, and Derrick Henry, I think that's going to be pretty hard to stop. And especially you pair that with Zay Flowers, like that's pretty good for them. My brother mentioned maybe Deebo to the Chargers, and I said the Chargers have enough receivers that can't catch.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other teams would be cool for Deebo. Not the Bills. The Bengals can make sense if they're going to lose T. Higgins. Like, I don't know if it's exactly the right scenario for them. They could probably, like, they're going from one often injured receiver to another in that case, and this guy has worse hands, so probably not. So I don't know. Just you would think that somebody that's winning would trade for Deebo, but then again, maybe. Oh no, I was gonna say the Jaguars.
Yeah, no.
But
I was like, if you're the Niners, you don't want to send Deebo to the Ravens because it's gonna make you look bad because they will make Deebo look good. You want to send them to the Jaguars. So, I mean, I don't know how Liam Cohen is going to run that offense, and maybe Deebo could have a resurrection there. Maybe Deebo is just going to be good no matter where he goes next year. But, I feel like the Jaguars would be a team that you want to send him to, or like the Titans, just so that way it doesn't make you look bad.
Yeah, I can see Houston. I guess my thinking here is like,
or the Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots. They have the cap space too. They could actually take his contract if they really felt like doing it.
Yeah, they wanted Ayuk. Fonzie says the Texans.
Yeah,
Bobby Slowick.
Well, not anymore. He got fired.
Oh yeah, true.
I think
Amigo Ryans.
I think whoever trades for Deebo, chances are, has a young quarterback that they want to get weapons for that quarterback. So all those names, the Jags, the Texans, the Patriots, those teams line up with that of having a young quarterback that needs weapons.
Hey, how about the Bears? The Bears would be a good landing spot for Deebo. Only
That's
because
very
Ben
convoluted.
Johnson is going to be calling plays, and I can see where they're able to use Deebo.
Yeah, I think they'd be more efficient probably than Shanahan, but I don't think he'd be getting more touches than he has with the Niners this year because you also have Odunze, who they have high capital invested in. I don't know what
It's a different kind of player, though.
Yeah, but you still have DJ Moore too, and I think DJ Moore falls more in line with Deebo. But DJ Moore is like a poor man's Jamar Chase, basically. Like he's the do-it-all guy. And then you have Odunze.
I was going to say the Lions, but they're losing Ben Johnson,
Right, but they could still also, if you're going to trade him, that's probably the last team you want to trade him to, other than the Rams, Seahawks, or Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Fonzie says send him to Vegas. Oh,
please,
and Fonzie says Washington would be a dangerous spot.
Yeah, I like T. Higgins more because I feel like Washington needs a possession receiver, whereas Terry McLaurin, he's a great possession receiver, but Terry McLaurin's very much like the deep threat guy. I mean, hey, if they could somehow afford both, that'd be a crazy trio of receivers, but I doubt they do that. I could see it for sure. And it makes sense. I think we mentioned this before. I might have mentioned this, but like they have Adam Peters there as the GM, so they could easily make good conversation as far as trade talks.
Mm-hmm. Fonzie says, at the right price, you can't have enough good backups. So many receivers are hitting free agency. Yeah, because I think teams realize you can get receivers. And paying them has become tremendously expensive. In that case, send them to the Patriots. Deebo and a second for Garrett. Deal. Bada bing, bada boom. Everybody wins. Except, well, actually, I really feel like the Browns would be taking advantage of us. So I hope the Browns don't see this video and decide to do that, because that would make me very sad, because I have a Deebo jersey. So, don't do it, Cleveland. Don't outsmart the 49ers here. Obviously, I am being 100% serious.